Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? Thank you so much. I see head nods as well from the panelists. Thank you very much. And at this time, are there any motions that need to be addressed by either party?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution has 3 housekeeping matters.
All right, go ahead, please. We'll go with the prosecution first since they have the burden.
First, we have entered into certain stipulations, and we request that they be constructively read into the record, and we request to publish them through screen sharing.
All right. Hold on. Go ahead. You said you had 3 matters you wish to address. Let me ask the defense if there's any objection to the first request.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. First request will be granted and stipulations admitted as stated. Next request, please, from the prosecution.
Our second request is that we use all time not used for closing to be reserved for a rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. Any objection from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, that second motion is granted. Go ahead. Third.
And lastly, would you prefer for the counsel to admit exhibits before screen sharing, or would you rather us screen share exhibits while laying the foundation for admission?
You can share while laying foundation, but obviously I'm reserving my ruling on admissibility or admitting the exhibit until after the arguments are completed. But either side can use either choice. They can use the exhibits in advance or submit them at the end, however you wish to do it, as long as you do move your exhibits in, okay?
Okay, that'll be all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Right. Any objection from the defense on those terms?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, and are those all the pre-motions from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any motions from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and are both sides prepared for opening statements at this time? Can I hear from the prosecution first?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is the defense prepared for opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, at this time, we will proceed to prosecution's opening statement. And are the timekeepers ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, prosecution, please, with your opening statement. Please introduce yourself once again before you start your opening statement so that the scoring panelists can know who you are.
My name is Lillian Swenson, and I, along with my co-counsel, represent the state of Colorado in trial today. Permission to proceed?
Yes, go right ahead.
Good morning, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. The prosecution today holds the burden of proof, and the evidence will show that beyond a reasonable doubt, the defendant is guilty of burglary in the second degree and murder in the first degree. Avery Becker and Mr. Brackman had a tense relationship that resulted in Avery getting kicked off the mock trial team, vandalizing Mr. Brackman's Porsche, and multiple verbal confrontations. Avery Becker and Mackenzie Brackman were not amicable. Text evidence collected by Detective Markowitz, an expert witness, illustrates Avery's intent to burglarize Mr. Brackman's home, and the evidence of confrontation is clear. Evidence also shows that on March 6, 2020, Avery Becker, an impulsive and hot-tempered teenager, attempted to trash Mr. Brackman's home. A struggle ensued, one which ended in the fatal stabbing of Mr. Brackman. This is felony murder, and a classic example of impulsivity in response to confrontation. The defendant, Avery Becker, is an impulsive teenager who was caught in the middle of a crime. Avery's friend on mock trial, Taylor Perkins, has a confusing history. A loyal history where Taylor Perkins quit mock trial to reinstate Avery's position on the team, drives Avery to school, and is the only person that can testify to Avery's alibi. On March 6th in a crowded mall, Taylor Perkins is the only one who can place Avery's location. Avery will also say that she was with Taylor all day on the day of the murder looking for her phone. By having Avery's phone compared to her third kidney, it's unreasonable to think she took hours to realize it was missing. The prosecution's analysis of the evidence was not flawed. Detective Markowitz began with the idea that maybe an ex-client of Mr. Brackman's could have been the perpetrator, but evidence supported a different conclusion. Text from Avery Becker to Alex Fuentes demonstrates the intent of burglary, and phone analysis done by Detective Markowitz places Avery near the scene of the crime. Kyle Kuzak, an expert witness with 19 years of experience, meticulously reconstructed the crime scene using a 5-step process designed with trial in mind. Her work was thorough and unbiased. The defense's private investigator, Professor Van Owen, has multiple biases against the trial today. He has a troubled relationship with the police department that resulted in him leaving the police force. Since then, he has only been on the defense against the police in trial, and today is another battle in his own grudge against the police department. Secondly, Professor Van Owen is being paid $8,000 to testify as a witness today. He will say it is his job, but if it was solely his job, why does it become a boasting point, referenced multiple times in his affidavit? The evidence is clear. Avery Becker was confronted in the attempted burglary, and during which Mr. Brackman was stabbed. This is felony murder. Avery Becker's alibi was only supported by Taylor Perkins, a loyal friend who has motive to lie. And the investigation completed by Professor Van Owen has no original evidence and is influenced by monetary and personal bias. The evidence is clear. The telephone analysis, crime scene reconstruction, and text from the defendant herself place Avery Becker at the scene of the crime, angry and ready for revenge. We ask that you find the defendant guilty of burglary in the second degree and murder in the first degree, as the evidence is resoundingly clear.
Defense opening, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eva D'Antoni. I'm a defense attorney for this case. From my own misadventures, I can tell you that when you're moving too quickly, you can gloss over details all too easily. When you rush, you miss things. The evidence that this case hinges on is all circumstantial. There is nothing linking Miss Becker to the crime. On the side of prosecution, they're giving themselves too much grace and a margin for error that is far beyond reason. Hang on, lost my place. Okay. Video evidence shows that an unidentified silhouette entered the Brackman household. Data collected from cell towers shows that the phone belonging to the phone belonging to Miss Becker was within range. Examples of this will include that it was just somewhere close and we can't pinpoint her location at the time, which is untrustworthy and vague. The prosecution hurried themselves through this case, finding my client to be the most likely candidate. The theory of Miss Becker snatching a knife from the kitchen sounds good at the first glance, but dig just a touch deeper and you'll find that the knife doesn't match the set found in Mr. Brackman's kitchen. Once again, they breezed right through this fact. Clearly, an outside intruder entered the house with plans to rob or blatantly murder Mr. Brackman. To further prove the defense's point, you'll hear from my client herself. Following her testimony, Taylor Perkins, a close friend and character witness of Miss Becker. You'll get an insight from Professor Blake Van Owen. Truly, the evidence is all fluff and
I have lost audio from Ms. D'Antonio. Can you hear me?
thank you.
All right. Is the prosecution ready to call their case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. First witness for the prosecution, please.
We would like to call Kyle Kuzak to the stand.
All right. Go ahead. And can I hear from Mr. Kenzak, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, prosecution.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Kyle Kuzak, Kuzak.
What is your job and what is your position?
I am a Colorado Bureau of Investigation Certified Crime Scene Reconstruction Investigator, also known as a CSR.
What does your position require you to do?
I investigate complex crime scenes such as invasions, burglaries, homicides, domestic violence, fatal accidents, armed robberies, and other property crimes.
How many years of experience do you have?
I have 19 years of experience.
Your Honor, we move to enter witness as an expert of crime scene reconstruction pursuant to Rule 702.
Defense, any objection?
Permission to do a brief voir dire, Your Honor.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Kuzak, are you a police officer?
No, I'm not. I'm a civilian employee of the Denver Police Department.
So do you have true formal training in all your fields of expertise?
Well, as a crime scene reconstructor, I don't have the responsibilities that a police officer might have. I'm an investigator, really.
But you are a civilian, or no, Your Honor, I object to the qualification of this witness as an expert on the grounds that Ms. Kuzak is a civilian employee and is not formally trained.
Response from the prosecution?
Your Honor, Ms. Cusack has had 19 years of experience and is certified in the crime scene reconstruction.
The court's going to find Ms. Cusack as an expert. Go ahead, prosecution.
Ms. Cusack, what two principles do you use to guide your work?
First, I assume every case is going to trial, so I always conduct a thorough and comprehensive investigation. Second, I memorize, document, and organize all evidence with a mindset of future reconstruction.
What are the 5 parts you apply to your principles to help you with your casework?
Recognition and documentation, collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, hypothesis and testing, and reconstruction.
You investigated the crime scene yourself, correct?
Yes, I did.
And what conclusions did you find?
Based on the evidence I gathered at the scene, I was able to conclude that during the afternoon of March 6th, 2020, a perpetrator matching the height and build of the defendant approached the victim's residence, initially stepping on the front porch and checking the front door as captured by a Ring door camera.
Are you familiar with what the Ring camera system is?
Yes, I am.
Can you please explain it to the court?
Yes, of course. The Ring cameras are a security system for civilians to set up around their house. They are cameras which allow residents to see what is happening right outside their home.
What else did the Ring camera show?
The Ring camera also showed the perpetrator then proceeding to the south side of the residence and out of the camera's range. An additional security camera on that side of the house picked up the perpetrator opening a fence gate and proceeding into the backyard.
Were any fingerprints or DNA left at the crime scene?
No fingerprints or DNA were recovered from the gate or the back door. Contrary to popular belief, DNA and fingerprints are not left on every surface, and in this case, it is clear based on the Ring cameras the perpetrator was wearing gloves.
How did the perpetrator get into the house?
As seen on a security camera at the rear door of the victim's residence, the perpetrator opened the sliding glass door and entered the residence.
What happened once the perpetrator was inside the house?
Well, the victim must have been alerted by the Ring security system as the intruder approached the front door, then went around to the gate on the side of the residence, and then went to the back door. The victim likely looked for a defensive weapon in the knife drawer, but then took the larger chef's knife from the knife block.
Do you have a copy of what has been previously marked as Exhibits 7 and 8?
Yes, I do.
I direct your attention to those exhibits. Would you please identify them?
Yes, Exhibit 7 is a photo of the open knife drawer found at the scene. Exhibit 8 is a photo of the knife block with the knife missing.
Your Honor, we move to enter Exhibits 7 and 8 into evidence.
Any objection from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 7 and 8 are admitted without objection. Go ahead, counsel.
Your Honor, may our timekeeper have permission to publish this exhibit to the jury?
Yes.
Ms. Cusack, What does Exhibit 7 show?
Exhibit 7 shows the knife drawer that was left open.
And what does Exhibit 8 show?
Exhibit 8 shows the knife block with one knife missing.
How do you know this?
Well, within my job as a CSR, it is my job to be familiar with all of the evidence of the case.
Is it a fair and accurate representation?
Yes, it is.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Why is Exhibit 7 important to the case?
Exhibit 7 shows the drawer that was left open, which showed several small knives and kitchen utensils. I believe the victim opened this drawer after hearing the alert from the Ring door camera. The victim then searched for a defense weapon inside this drawer.
And why is Exhibit 8 important?
Well, after searching through the small drawer, the victim moved to the block of knives where there was one knife missing from the block, which was for a large chef's knife, and the knife ultimately recovered from the body of the victim was just such a knife.
Ms. Cusack, what happened once the intruder had entered into Brackman's house?
The victim then confronted the intruder when the intruder entered through the back door. The two individuals struggled over the knife. The struggle then moved to the kitchen table where the plate was knocked to the ground.
What happened after that?
At some point, the intruder disarmed the victim and obtained the chef's knife. The location and position of the knife that was in the victim's body would be consistent with the intruder being in very close proximity to the victim, such as being in a bear hug, then reaching over and stabbing the victim in the upper back and shoulder area.
And just real quick, timekeeper, you can quit screen sharing if you like. We're proceeding on. What happened after the victim was stabbed?
After the victim was stabbed, the victim forcefully pulled the knife out of his back. According to the coroner's report, the tip of the knife would have acted as a partial plug to the incision in the aorta. Because of that, once the knife was removed, the victim would have started bleeding internally at an accelerated rate and died very quickly.
Are you aware of who Blake Van Owen is?
Yes.
Did you read over Van Owen's report?
Yes, I did.
Was Blake Van Owen's report accurate to your knowledge?
Well, to my knowledge, Blake Van Owen's report was not accurate. First, Blake Van Owen believes the victim was stabbed by the intruder from behind while at the kitchen table. This theory is not backed by evidence. The Ring app would have alerted the victim of intruder, the victim would have heard the back door slide open, and the intruder would have been holding the knife backward from the way everyone would have to hold it and would have had to be standing directly over the victim.
Was Van Owen ever able to directly examine the evidence?
Objection,
No.
leading.
There's an objection response by the prosecution.
I'm sorry, what was the objection? It cut out.
The objection was leading.
Your Honor, it is not leading because the witness I withdraw my question.
All right, go ahead.
Based on your findings, do you believe that Avery Becker is responsible for the death of Brackman?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Your Honor, no further questions.
All right, cross-examination by the defense.
Ms. Cusack, let's start with your qualifications. You work for the police department, correct?
That's correct.
And you reconstruct crime scenes?
Yes, I've been doing it for 19 years.
You visited the scene of the murder of Mr. Brackman at 444 South Flower Street.
Yes, I did.
Before or after the evidence was processed by other experts?
After the evidence was processed.
And this murder occurred on March 6, 2020?
That's correct.
When you visited the crime scene, you concluded that the knife was lodged in Mr. Brackman's back, correct?
That's correct.
And was the knife lodged in a way that it was hard to pull out?
I don't know how you would qualify whether a knife would be hard to pull out because the victim did pull the knife out of his own back.
Well, but how, if Brackman was in so much pain, could he have pulled the knife out?
That's not in my witness statement. Would you still like me to answer?
No, you do not need to. And now I want to move on to the Ring video. The ring video shows a masked person entering the residence.
Yes, that's correct.
And was the intruder wearing gloves?
Yes, they were.
So no DNA was left behind.
No.
Was the face of the intruder ever seen?
No, the intruder was wearing a mask as shown on the ring door camera.
Let's move on. You concluded that someone alike to Avery's body type killed Mr. Brackman, but there is no DNA or visual proof.
Well, contrary to popular belief, DNA is not left on every surface, and the perpetrator did match the height and build of Avery Becker.
And the blood splatters from the scene were corrupted?
Partially corrupted, yes, but I had nothing to do with that.
So you couldn't piece together the whole story of the case?
Well, granted, I would have personally preferred more evidence. There was enough evidence to come to a solid and evidence-backed conclusion.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect by the prosecution?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the witness is excused. Prosecution's next witness, please.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves to call Detective Markowitz to the stand.
Detective Markowitz, please, could you identify yourself?
Hello.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead, prosecution.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
What is your current profession?
I am currently a homicide investigator with the Denver Police Department, and I have been for the past 7 years. But I've actually been working with the police department for over 13 years.
Do you have any areas of specialization?
I do. I have advanced training and experience with cell phone technology as well as forensic data recovery.
Could you describe your training for us?
Of course. So I have been trained in how to obtain and interpret cell phone data and records, and also how to use the Celebrite system, which allows me to download the contents of any cell phone.
And how often would you say you use this training?
I use it every day. I've used it with hundreds of cell phones in over 50 cases similar to this one.
Where was your training completed?
I took a course with the American Academy of Law Enforcement where I learned about all of these things.
Your Honor, based on Detective Markowitz's education at the American Academy of Law Enforcement and her extensive professional experience as a homicide detective, we move to enter Detective Markowitz as an expert witness in the fields of cell phone tracking and homicide investigation pursuant to Rule 702.
Defense, any objection?
Permission to perform a brief voir dire.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, Detective Markowitz, the certification that you mentioned in cell phone technology and forensic data recovery is just a certification, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So there was no degree necessary to receive the certification, is that right?
No, but it was good enough for the American Academy of Law Enforcement.
Okay, so there was no degree.
It is a certification, there is no degree.
Okay, and after your many years of experience with the Denver Police Department, you do not have any reviews in your testimony with your performance, is that right?
Could you please rephrase the question? I don't quite
Sorry.
understand.
Wait, hang on. I might have worded that weird. Experience with Denver Police Department, you don't have any reviews in your testimony of your performance, correct? Okay, so have you been reviewed in your performance in your testimonies?
Objection, Your Honor, not in the witness's statement.
Yeah, that's fair. My bad. I'm sorry. Your Honor, I object to Jordan Markowitz being confirmed as an expert witness in the fields of homicide, cell phone technology, and forensic data recovery on the grounds of lack of experience.
All right, I've listened to the prosecution's request for to be declared as an expert witness. I've heard your objection. The court's going to grant prosecution's request and find that Officer Markowitz is an expert witness. Go ahead, prosecution.
To start, Detective Markowitz, could you please describe your involvement in this case?
Of course. I was asked to investigate the death of Mr. Mackenzie Brackman, whose body was found at his residence at 444 South Flower Street, Denver, Colorado on March 6th, 2020.
And what did you find at the victim's residence?
Well, immediately after getting there, I noticed that the front door was wide open and the victim was lying face down in a pool of his own blood. There was a large stab wound on the victim's back, as well as a knife nearby the victim's body.
Could you please describe the knife for us?
Yes, it was a Chicago cutlery brand blade, about 7 inches long, and this is a common kitchen knife that was easily accessible at the scene of the crime.
And why would you say that it was easily accessible?
Well, first thing I noticed when I began investigating the kitchen was that there was an open drawer filled with assorted knives of all different brands. There was also a knife block with an empty slot.
Did any of the knives in the drawer match the Chicago cutlery brand?
They didn't, but as I said, the victim was in possession of a lot of different brands, and as we can see from Exhibit 7, a lot of different types of knives. It does not surprise me that the Chicago cutlery brand could have been among them.
How did you identify the victim?
Well, I conducted my routine investigation, which includes trying to find an ID on the victim, and in this case I did, and realized that it was Mr. Mackenzie Brackman, who used to be a criminal defense lawyer.
Was there anything else you observed at the residence?
There was. In the dining room, I noticed that there was a broken plate on the floor, as well as blood spatter on the floor and walls nearby the victim's body.
And after identifying the victim, what steps did you take to further your investigation?
Well, using my training with the Celebrite system, I downloaded the contents of Mr. Brackman's phone.
And did you find anything of use on the victim's phone?
Fortunately, I did. There were numerous text messages, emails, and other documents and communication regarding mock trial. I looked into this a little bit and discovered that Mr. Brackman used to be a coach for the Colorado High School mock trial team.
And did you contact anyone from that mock trial team?
Yes, I was able to get in contact with Miss Alex Cifuentes. And after discovering that she knew a little bit about the case, I contacted her and her parents to come in for a full interview.
And did your interview of Cifuentes reveal anything about the case?
Yeah, it actually gave me my first big break. She told me about a fellow mock trial student named Avery Becker, who shortly before Mr. Brackman's death had vandalized Mr. Brackman's car. This had ended in Avery getting kicked off the mock trial team, and Alex Cifuentes told me about a text communication between her and Avery that had ended in Avery Becker threatening to trash Mr. Brackman's house.
Did you manage to speak to Avery Becker about this case?
Unfortunately, no. Her attorney blocked me from doing so.
Did you see the text communication between Cifuentes and Becker?
Well, Cifuentes had forgotten to bring her phone to the interview, so I had her send me screenshots of this text communication to confirm what she had told me, and the text communication was exactly as she said. I did also try to get a hold of Miss Becker's phone, but unfortunately her attorney informed me that it had been lost on March 5th, 2020.
Were you given access to any part of Avery Becker's phone?
I was able to get a hold of the defendant's cell phone number. This allowed me to acquire the account records and call detail records from the day of the murder.
Could you explain to us how call detail records work?
Of course. So unlike a service provider, call detail records keep a record of every single communication that happens from a phone, as well as the cell towers to which it connected at any given time. And cell phones are constantly reaching out to these cell towers. So if you can get the data from all the cell towers in an area from a certain time, you can get a pretty accurate location of where a cell phone was.
So how did these CDRs help specifically in this case?
Well, gathering the evidence from all the cell towers from March 6th, 2020, I was able to get a pretty accurate location of where Miss Avery Becker was at the day of the murder.
And where did Avery Becker appear to be on the day of the murder?
From the evidence I gathered, it looked like Avery Becker had traveled from the vicinity of her own house at about 12:47 to the vicinity of Mr. Brackman's house, where she was from about 1:05 in the afternoon to 1:17 in the afternoon. this is about the time of Mr. Brackman's murder.
After reviewing the evidence, what conclusion did you reach about the manner of Mr. Brackman's murder?
It looked to me like a burglary gone wrong. Avery Becker had intended to getting revenge on Mr. Brackman, who had kicked her off the mock trial team, intended to trash Mr. Brackman's house, but finding Mr. Brackman at the scene, a struggle ensued, which ended in Mr. Brackman's death. And since this murder happened during the course of a burglary, it makes it felony murder.
Thank you, Detective Markowitz. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination by the defense.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now, if that's all right.
That's great.
All right. Let's begin with your observation on 444 South Flower Street. Detective Markowitz, you mentioned a blood splatter in the house, correct?
Yes, it was on the floor and walls nearby the victim.
Okay. Was it also found on the ceiling?
There was no blood spatter on the ceiling that I'm aware of.
Okay. You also stated that you did not proceed to the location of the knife, correct?
Since I was not investigating that part of the scene, I had my forensic team do that.
Okay. So then the forensic team was responsible to process the scene they were responsible to process the scene?
Yes, that is their job.
Okay. And let me scroll down. There we go. Okay. And could in the only way the blood splatter on the ceiling could have been the blood splatter on the ceiling could have been seen would have been near the knife, correct?
Yes, it likely would have happened where the victim was killed.
Okay, and would have those been cast-off marks from a potential scuffle?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation?
Response.
Let me rephrase. Were the marks categorized as cast-off marks?
Yes, cast off and blood spatter.
Okay. Despite being in the preceded location that was photographed?
I don't see how those are mutually exclusive.
Okay. In the forensic...
I'm sorry, your audio just cut out. I missed that last question.
So, Ms. D'Antoni, we are losing some audio.
Okay, there we go. I'm back.
There. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No
Okay.
worries.
Go ahead.
So the forensic team did take photographs of this scene.
Yes, they did.
Were the photographs corrupted? Did they turn out okay?
I believe that they were partially corrupted. However, we were able to review all this evidence before that took place.
Okay. Now let's discuss the positioning of the victim's body. You stated earlier that the knife was found near the body. Is that right?
That's correct.
Your testimony also stated that based on your research, if Mr. Brackman seemed to be running away after being stabbed, the knife would be found farther away from the body, right?
That's not necessarily the case. It just depends where the victim pulled the knife out of his body.
Okay. So let's move on to your history with Mackenzie Brackman. Detective Markowitz, in your testimony, you stated that you had met Mr. Brackman before?
Yes, I had been cross-examined by him.
Okay, and you stated that in this case, which you had the displeasure of being cross-examined by, he took cheap shots at you and attacked the work of the police. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't agree with his methods of cross-examining, but as I am not a lawyer, I don't believe I have full judgment over that.
Alrighty. Now let's discuss Miss Becker's cell phone. Avery Becker claimed to have lost her phone the day before the murder, right?
That is what she said, but I don't really know if that's true or not.
Okay, so you claim that she was not telling the truth about losing her phone the day before the crime?
I'm just saying it's possible that if you murdered someone, you wouldn't tell the truth.
All right, so if that's the case, it would be very strange that Miss Becker would not answer Miss Perkins' texts or calls due to their close friendship.
Well, as I believe Miss Becker was in the course of a murder while these calls were being launched by Taylor Perkins, I don't believe that that she would have answered her phone during the course of the murder.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any redirect from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Detective Markowitz, do you believe you gathered enough evidence in this case to support your conclusion?
Absolutely. I believe that we engaged in a very thorough and comprehensive investigation, and all this evidence led to Avery Becker.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any recross?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, the witness is excused. Next witness for the prosecution.
The prosecution would like to call Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
All right. Can the witness raise their right hand? Do they swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead with your questioning, counsel.
Good morning, Mrs. Cifuentes. Would you please state your name and spell the last for the record?
Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
Do you know the defendant, Avery Becker?
Yes.
How do you know the defendant?
I go to Colorado High School of Avery, and I'm on the mock trial team with her.
And how would you describe your relationship with Avery?
We have an amicable relationship. We're far from rivals.
How did you see Avery acting while at mock trial practices?
Well, Avery often came to mock trial practice unprepared and made things up on the fly, much to many of our teammates and Mr. Brackman's annoyance.
Did you witness any incidents between Avery and Mr. Brackman?
Yes, I did.
The witness is speculating on the state of mind of her fellow mock trial team members.
Response?
Is this in response to my witness's answer to the last question or the question itself?
Ms. May?
Sorry, thank you, Your Honor. The response to the last question.
Okay.
I'm asking the witness to testify to her observations of mock trial practice.
Overrule the objection. Go ahead with the testimony.
I'll repeat my question, Ms. Cifuentes. Did you witness any incidents between Avery and Mr. Brackman?
Yes, I did. Avery and Mr. Brackman got in many frequent and heated arguments in front of the rest of our team. One day, Avery even got so mad that she stormed out and grabbed a Sharpie from the easel where we always take notes, and she wrote Worst Attorney Award on the hood of Mr. Brackman's vintage 1986 Porsche 911.
What happened after the vandalism?
Well, after the vandalism, Avery was kicked off the team for good.
And did you experience anything that made you think Avery was upset?
Yes, Avery texted me after the event, and she asked me if I could talk to Mr. Brackman on her behalf. When Mr. Brackman didn't change his mind and let Avery back on the team, she texted me, if Mr. Brackman thought he was upset about what I did to his car, wait till he sees what I do to his house.
What did you do when you received that text?
Well, I was very confused and concerned, so I texted Avery what she meant by this, and she said that she meant to go to Mr. Brackman's residence while he was at work and trash the place.
And after Avery allegedly murdered Mr. Brackman, did the detectives reach out to you?
Yes, they did. I didn't want to rat Avery out, but this is a murder trial and it's very serious. So I told them about the text from Avery, and they asked me to go down to the station for a full interview.
Did you have your phone with you at the interview?
Unfortunately, I did not.
Why did you not have your phone?
My phone was getting old and it didn't hold charge for long, so I made sure to put it on the cord before I left so that I'd have the screenshots. But when my dad yelled that it was time to go, I left in such a rush that I forgot it on the charger. Luckily, when I went down to the station, I volunteered to go back and get my phone, but the detective said that the screenshots would be just fine.
Permission for a timekeeper to share the screen for Exhibit 14.
Any objection, Ms. May?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Would you please identify Exhibit 14?
Exhibit 14 are screenshots of the text that Avery sent to me that I mentioned previously.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the screenshot?
Yes, it is.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, it has not.
And how do you know these texts are from Avery?
I know these texts are from Avery because I have Avery's number in my phone, so I know for certain they're from her.
Your Honor, remove for the admission of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 14 in pursuit to Rule 702.
Counsel for the defense, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, you got cut off. Did you say no objection?
Yes, I'll repeat myself. No objection, Your Honor. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you. Exhibit 14 is admitted without objection. Go ahead, prosecution.
Permission for my co-counsel to publish to the jury.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fuentes, where's your phone now?
Because the charge was bad, I traded in my old phone for a new one about 3 months ago. I have no idea what the phone store did to it after that.
I'm going to change topics for a second. Do you know Blair Rowlands?
I do. I go to school at Rollins.
And how would you describe your relationship with Blair Rowlands?
I don't have any sort of meaningful relationship with Rollins. We barely know each other well enough to say hello or goodbye in the hallway.
How would you describe your relationship with Mr. Brackman?
Mr. Brackman was a very talented coach and litigator who I looked up to and respected very much.
Would you ever do anything to harm Mr. Brackman?
I would never. He was our beloved coach, and I'd never do anything to put him in harm's way.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination by the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a few questions if you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Would you say that you and Avery Becker are close friends?
Yes, I'd like to think so.
And is it also true that you and Avery Becker only really spent time together at mock trial practice and related events?
Yes, I thought it was very meaningful, though.
And is it true that you found Avery's lack of effort frustrating?
I would say it sort of irked me, but so does when someone takes up 2 seats on the bus. I know that my worth doesn't come from Avery's success or other people's, so I'm proud of myself, and Avery's success doesn't diminish from that.
Is that a yes?
Well, no. No.
So you didn't find Avery's lack of effort frustrating?
No, not frustrating.
Is that consistent with your witness statement?
In my statement, I said that it sort of irked me. I wouldn't say that it got to the level of frustration.
And is it true that Avery won the Best Attorney Award at the regional tournament?
Yes.
And is it also true that Avery won the Best Closing Argument Award?
Yes.
And Mr. Brackman said that she didn't deserve these awards?
Yeah, Mr. Brackman liked when our teammates prepared, and that wasn't really Avery's style.
And at this point, Avery was extremely upset, correct?
At which point are you referring?
After the regional tournament and Mr. Brackman had told her, as previously established.
Yes, Avery got very upset when Mr. Brackman would make these remarks.
And Avery rode on Mr. Brackman's car, correct?
Yes.
And you think that Mr. Brackman should have pressed charges, correct?
I thought that Mr. Brackman was very kind to not press charges, but it was vandalism. And as a mock trial student, I know that charges do come with vandalism.
And you thought that Mr. Brackman should have pressed charges?
That's Mr. Brackman's decision.
Would you like me to direct you to your witness statement?
Yes, I personally thought he should press charges, but once again, that's not up to me.
And is it true that Mr. Brackman kicked Avery off the team?
Yes.
And you thought that the team would be better off without Avery, correct?
Yes. Avery was very good, but it did stress us out when he didn't prepare.
And you were excited for the larger role that you would get, correct?
Yes.
And is it true that Avery tried to get back on the team?
Yes, it is.
And you saw Avery Becker at the Fry Shack the night before the murder, is that correct?
I did.
And is it true that Avery gave you his phone?
Yes, she let me play a game on her phone.
So you had complete access to his unlocked phone then?
Yes, but simply to play a game.
I'd like to move on to the text messages that you provided to Detective Markowitz. Is it true that you forgot to bring your phone to your interview?
Yes, it is true, but I did volunteer to go back and grab my phone for the interview.
And you only gave the detective screenshots of the text messages?
Yes.
And finally, do you know a Blair Rowlands?
I do. We go to school together, but we don't have any meaningful relationship.
And are you two in the same grade?
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Fuentes, how well do you know Blair Rowlands?
Not well at all.
And did you offer to go back to the police department with your phone?
I did.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, witnesses excused. And does the prosecution rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Is the defense prepared to put their case on in chief?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, please call your first witness.
The defense calls Avery Becker to the stand.
Mr. Becker, could you please raise your right hand? Ms. Becker, I apologize. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. To start off, please state your full name and spell your last name for the jury.
My name is Avery Becker, and my last name is spelled Becker.
Thank you, Avery. Where do you live?
I live in Colorado.
And where did you go to school last year?
Last year I was a senior at Colorado High School, or also known as CHS.
What clubs did you participate in at CHS?
I participated in mock trial.
Were you good at mock trial?
Yes, I won the Best Attorney Award.
Who was your mock trial coach?
My mock trial coach was Mackenzie Brackman.
Can you describe your relationship with Mr. Brackman briefly?
Mr. Brackman and I never really got along because mock trial came very naturally to me, and he never really liked that because he wanted me to be very prepared, but that's not how I like to win.
Thank you, Avery. Now, what can you tell us about Taylor Perkins?
Taylor Perkins is my friend who was also on mock trial.
And what is your relationship with Miss Perkins like?
I would say we are very close, and we joined the club together so we could hang out and be closer.
And what was your role in mock trial last year?
I was an attorney, and I directed the mother's nurse and crossed the doctor in that case.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Relevance.
Response.
This lays the foundation for Ms. Becker's relationship with Mr. Brackman.
Okay. Any further response from the prosecution?
Your Honor, the question regarded Avery Becker's role in the mock trial last year. I don't see how this shows the relationship.
I'm going to give some leeway to the defense. Go ahead, defense. Overrule the objection.
How did Mr. Brackman react to the awards that you won?
Mr. Brackman always really invalidated me and often said that my wins, such as my win for Best Closing and Best Attorney Award, were because of things such as luck and my looks, which I felt really invalidated my hard work in mock trial.
And how did this make you feel?
It really upset me because I knew that I was the best attorney on the team, and I really didn't appreciate that I was never congratulated in any way.
And what did you do about that? What did you do after that practice?
After the regionals?
After the practice where Mr. Brackman was making comments about your awards.
At that practice, I was really upset that he continued to make those comments. So I was holding what I thought to be a dry erase marker since we were mapping out what happened at the regional tournament. And I stormed out with what I thought to be with that dry erase marker. And on the hood of Mr. Brackman's car, I wrote Worst Attorney Award.
And just to be clear, you did not ever mean to vandalize his car with a permanent marker?
No, I did not.
What did Brackman do when he found out?
He had come out to apologize to me about how he treated me before, but got very upset about what I had done to his Porsche and kicked me off the team.
How did you react to being kicked off the team?
I was very upset since mock trial was incredibly important to me. And I left very upset, but then that night decided that I would go and apologize to Mr. Brackman.
And when you apologized to Mr. Brackman, was it a sincere apology?
I tried to do the apology in person, but his secretary said that he was not willing to speak to me. So I texted him and told him that I would be willing to pay to repaint his car and scrub it, which I found as very sincere.
So you meant this apology, correct?
Yes, I did.
I want to direct your attention to March 5th. Can you describe what you did after school on this day, the day before Brackman was killed?
Myself and Taylor Perkins went to the mall and the Fry Shack, in which we saw other members of the mock trial team, such as Alex Cervantes.
And the next day, March 6th, what happened after you woke up?
I had realized that I could not find my phone anywhere, and the last time I remembered seeing my phone was after playing games with Taylor Perkins.
Did you give your phone to Alex Cifuentes at any point?
I did.
Do you remember Alex Cifuentes being the last person to use your phone?
I only remember the last time seeing my phone was when I was with Taylor and we were playing games.
So what did you do next when you were looking for your phone?
Myself and Taylor, I went to her house and we decided to skip school that day because we were very concerned that we could not find my phone. So we went to retrace our steps at the mall and Fry Shack.
And what's your relationship like with Alex Cifuentes?
We've never really gotten along, which I believe to be because I was always the best attorney on the team. And I think he got pretty jealous about that.
Did you ever text with Alex?
I did not.
So you would have never sent the texts that were previously presented in Exhibit 14?
I did not.
And what was your relationship like with Blair Rowlands?
The way that I knew her was because our coach, Mr. Brackman, lost the trial that sent her father to jail.
Have you seen Blair recently?
I have not. She has disappeared after the murder of Mr. Brackman.
And are you aware that you and Blair share physical similarities?
Yes, I am.
So just to be clear, did you ever go to Mr. Brackman's house on March 6th?
No, I did not. I do not even know where Mr. Brackman lived.
Thank you for your time today, Avery. This witness is prepped for cross.
All right, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Becker. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the case today. Taylor quit mock trial to reinstate your position. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Taylor's a pretty loyal friend, yes?
Yes, I would say so.
And moving on to the practice after the regional mock trial competition, Mr. Brackman had a discussion with you about preparation, yes?
Yes, he did.
And you left this conversation angrily, did you not?
Yes, I felt that his comments were very uncalled for, and I was very upset about that.
So after storming out, you vandalized Mr. Brackman's car.
Not purposely, because I believed it was a dry erase marker, and I believed that it would easily wipe off of his car.
Vandalism is still accurate as a description of the crime if you used a dry erase marker, yes?
And asked and answered.
Response?
Your Honor, the witness stated that she didn't mean to vandalize the car because it was a dry erase marker.
Overruled. Go ahead with your question and response.
I'll re-ask the question. Do you understand that vandalism is the appropriate title, regardless of the fact that it was a dry erase marker?
Yes, it is.
And after the incident, you left school and went home, yes?
Yes, I did.
You didn't tell your mom the truth, did you, about the night?
No, but we agreed that I would apologize to Mr. Brackman the next day.
So you didn't tell her about the vandalism, but you agreed to apologize?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Response?
Your Honor, if the witness had not told her mom, then the mom would not have suggested apologizing.
I'm going to sustain the objection and move on to something else, please.
Yes, Your Honor. So the last time you remember having your phone is at the Fry Shack, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the next day, you went to the mall to look for your phone. Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And you also say that your mom takes your phone at night. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
But you didn't realize your phone was missing in the morning.
I did realize in the morning.
You did realize your phone is missing and your mom takes your phone at night. Just to clarify, yes, to both of those?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And while you're at the Fry Shack, you mentioned that you don't exactly remember who had your phone last. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Ms. Becker, just to be clear, did you send any text to Alex Fuentes?
No, I did not.
And you lost your phone on the night of March 5th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Witness, you're excused. Defense's next witness, please.
All righty. The defense. Oh, sorry. The defense calls Taylor Perkins to the stand.
Okay. Ms. Perkins, please. Ms. Perkins, can you raise your right hand?
Yes, Your Honor.
You swear affirm under penalty of law, testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Perkins. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
So let's begin with your relationship with Avery Becker. Why are you here today?
I'm here today because I believe my best friend, Avery Becker, did not murder our mock trial coach, Mackenzie Brackman.
Okay. Could you describe how you perceived Avery's relationship with Mr. Brackman?
Avery and Coach Brackman had a very negative relationship. They always seemed to be at odds about the best way to prepare for a mock trial tournament. Although I did witness this, I personally tried not to get involved in their little feud.
Okay. Could you describe Avery's involvement in mock trial? It happened again, didn't it? There we go.
Ms. Sokol, could you hear the question from the person?
Sorry, no, I did not hear the question. Would you please repeat?
Ms. D'Antoni, can you please repeat the question?
Of course. Could you describe Avery's involvement in mock trial?
Avery was very involved in mock trial. We joined the club together as freshmen, but over the course of high school, she really came to love it.
Okay. What about her work ethic? Was she ever punished for it?
She was. There at one point, Coach Brackman demoted her to B team, and then I decided to quit the team so she could be back on A team. Mock trial was much more important to Avery than it was to me, and I would rather she had that opportunity and got to really enjoy it than I did.
Okay, so let's move on to Avery's last practice, the practice after regionals. How did the practice begin?
I was not at that practice, but I believe it went well up until Avery and Coach Brackman's argument.
Okay. Do you know how Avery responded to this?
Avery was quite upset at Coach Brackman's critiques for her, despite the fact that she got awards and did well at the trial. She stormed out of the practice and then proceeded to write Worst Attorney Award on his car.
Did Avery make it clear why she did it?
She was upset and made a rash decision. She thought she was using a dry erase marker and did not realize that the damage she was doing was in fact permanent.
And how did Mr. Brackman respond to this?
He kicked her off the mock trial team.
Objection, hearsay.
On like where?
Can you repeat yourself? Sorry, I can't.
Oh, sorry. Which question are you responding to hearsay to? We went through two.
Oh, your most previous one about how Mr. Brackman responded to that.
Okay. That's fair. My bad. Sorry. Okay. Moving on. Did Avery make any attempts to rejoin the mock trial? Again. Oh my god, this is. Okay. Is my Wi-Fi back yet? No, she's not. She's not here. Okay, there we go. We're back.
I apologize. My audio cut out. Would you mind repeating the question?
Of course, it's a little slippy over on my end. So, did Avery make any attempts to rejoin the mock trial team?
She did. She asked Coach Brackman to rejoin the team, but he would not let her.
Okay, did Avery contact anyone when trying to rejoin?
I believe Avery did contact some team members, everyone on the team, in fact, although the last person she would ask would be Alex Cifuentes, because Avery and Alex were quite competitive, and I do not believe that Alex would be the first person Avery would go to.
Could you describe how you perceived the relationship between Alex and Avery?
I perceive the relationship as very competitive. They were both quite passionate about mock trial and always wanted the biggest role on the team.
Okay, now let's move on to March 5th, the day before Mr. Brackman's murder. Where did you and Avery go after school?
After school that day, we went to the Fry Shack at the mall.
Okay, do you remember seeing anybody there?
Yes, the entire mock trial team was there.
Did anybody stand out? Do you specifically remember seeing anybody?
Yes, Alex Cifuentes took Avery's phone to play a game on it.
I think we lost Ms. D'Antonio after the Fry Shack question. Can you repeat the questions that you have?
Yeah, of course. What question were we on? Okay. Do you remember where Avery's phone was during your time at Fry Shack?
Alex Cifuentes had Avery's phone to play a game.
Okay. Did Avery leave the phone on the table? Did she get up to go anywhere?
I'm sorry, my computer's being a little choppy. Would you mind repeating the question?
Okay. When Avery got up to go to the bathroom, was anybody near the phone where she left it?
Yes, Alex Cifuentes still had access to the phone.
Okay. Do you remember if Avery picked up her phone before after you two left?
I do not. She was quite frustrated and had needed to take some time away from the team, so I left with her, and I do not recall her taking her phone.
And where did you and Avery go after you two left the Fry Shack?
We went to the mall.
Okay. So now I would like to discuss your whereabouts on the morning of March 6, 2020, the day of Mr. Brackman's murder. Did you go to school that morning?
I did not. That morning, I was texting Avery, and she did not respond to any of my texts. When she came to my house to pick me up, we realized she had not been responding because she couldn't find her phone.
Okay, so where did you and Avery go to look for the phone?
We went back to the mall to retrace our steps.
Okay, where specifically did you go?
We went all over the mall, but we specifically checked Fry Shack as that was the last place either of us could remember seeing the phone.
Okay, and what happened at the Fry Shack?
We could not find it.
Okay, was anybody else at Fry Shack, or what was going on?
Not on that day. As all of our friends and classmates were in school, we were just there in the middle of the day to look for the phone.
Okay. Now I would like to talk about your former classmate, Blair Rowland. Could you describe how you saw the relationship between Blair Rowland and Mr. Brackman?
I know Blair Rowland greatly disliked Mr. Brackman because after losing the case,
I've lost audio on Ms. Sokol.
Okay. Oh, I thought that was on my end.
Okay. Ms. Sokol, could you just repeat your last response?
I apologize. Could you please repeat the question again? My computer is being a little difficult.
Oh, it's fine. How did you perceive the relationship between Blair Rowlands and Mr. Brackman?
Blair Rowlands really seemed to hate Mr. Brackman. Mr. Brackman lost the court case, which ended in Blair's father, Jonathan, being sentenced to life in prison. So Blair definitely held that against Mr. Brackman.
Could you tell if Blair Rowlands was close with anybody, friends with them, maybe?
I believe Blair Rowlands was friends with Alex Cifuentes.
Okay. Was Blair at school on the day of Mr. Brackman's murder?
I was not at school, so I cannot be entirely sure, but everyone who I've spoken to who was there says that they could not see Blair, and no one believes Blair was at school that day.
Okay. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Ms. Perkins, you and Avery were very close, correct?
Correct.
Are you a loyal friend to Avery?
I would like to believe so, yes. Avery and I are good friends.
Is Avery impulsive or does things without thinking them through?
Sometimes she does make rash decisions before thinking them through. However, she will regret and try to make up for those decisions once she realizes what she's done.
Avery has shown up to practice and improvise many things, correct?
That is correct.
Are you aware that Avery was demoted to B team?
I was.
What did you do once Avery was demoted?
I forfeited my place on the A team for Avery because she was much more passionate about the club than I was, and I believed she would enjoy that experience more than I would.
Moving on, has Avery ever given you cause not to trust them?
Avery and I are good friends, and I would always trust her.
With that, do you believe almost everything Avery tells you?
Yes, I know Avery would not lie to me.
Your house is in between Brackman's and Avery's, yes?
I believe so. However, I was not exactly aware of where Brackman's house was until the trial.
But now that you know where Brackman's house is, do you think that the length of time to get from Brackman's to your house and from Avery's to your house is estimately the same?
I guess so.
On the day of his death, you and Avery had first period off, correct?
I apologize, my computer is glitching. Could you please repeat the question?
No need to apologize. On that day of Brackman's death, you and Avery had first period off, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So Avery picked you up later than when school originally starts?
Yes, that is correct.
With your observations, did Brackman and Avery get along?
They did not. However, it was just a little feud over a club. It would never lead to murder. That's insane.
However, it did lead to Avery vandalizing a car, yes?
Correct. However, Avery did.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your answer? The audio cut out.
I apologize. I was unable to hear the question. Could you please repeat?
With your observations, what was the relationship like between Alex and Avery?
Alex and Avery were quite competitive. They were far from friends.
Avery did text Alex to try to get back onto the team, to your knowledge, correct?
Well, I cannot be entirely sure of who Avery texted. I believe Avery did text the entire team.
Including Alex Princess?
Knowing Avery, I know Alex is the last person that she would text. However, I cannot be entirely sure whether she did or did not.
You referred to Avery's phone as their third kidney, correct?
Correct. Avery always had her phone on her. She loved using that thing.
Do you think it's possible for Avery to lose their phone that morning?
Potentially, she was quite.
So, Ms. Sokol, your screen froze. Can you hear me? Ms. Sokol, we lost your audio on the last response. Could you repeat the question, Ms. Perry?
Of course. Do you think it's possible for Avery to lose her phone that morning?
I believe it is possible. Avery was quite upset from the incident the day before, so I do not believe she was thinking about her phone's whereabouts as she usually does.
So did it strike you as odd that it took Avery so long to notice it if it was lost the night before?
Potentially, however, it was not a normal day, and I don't think she was in an emotional state to be thinking about her phone as one usually does.
Thank you. That will be all, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, sorry. No, Your Honor.
All right, witness is excused.
Thank you.
Defense, your next witness, please.
Your Honor, I would like to call Professor Blake Van Owen to the stand.
All right. Professor, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead with your direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, may you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Yes, I am Professor Blake Van Owen, spelled Vanowen.
And why are you here today?
I'm here to testify against Avery Becker. Or for Avery Becker, my bad.
No worries. And when did your experience with law enforcement begin?
I was on the Aurora Police Department.
And after being a police officer, what did you do for a living?
I was a school resource officer and then a private security guard, and now I'm a private investigator as well as a professor.
And in which fields have you been an expert witness in?
I've been an expert witness in many fields, including crime scene reconstruction and cell tower data analysis.
And in a case, which side do you usually testify for?
I usually testify for the defense because the prosecution has other resources other than private investigators.
And what additional training or certifications do you have?
I received a master's degree in criminal justice from Ashford University.
And just backpedaling a little bit, why did you quit your job as a police officer for the Aurora Police Department?
Well, during an arrest of a young woman, I injured her using a technique that was okayed by the police department. However, I felt terrible about my actions, so I decided to resign.
And what did you learn from this experience?
Well, I learned that the criminal justice system needs reform, and my actions should not have been let go without any punishment. So I decided to resign and now work as a private investigator.
Well said. Your Honor, I move to enter Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert in the fields of police practices, crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police investigation tactics on the basis of his extensive education and experience in those fields.
Ms. Link, your position?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Van Owen is admitted as an expert in those fields. Go ahead with your direct. Without objection.
Thank you. Based on your training and experience, how would you describe this police investigation?
It's been choppy and subpar, not thorough at all.
And how did you educate yourself on the specifics of this case?
Well, I reviewed police reports and the crime scene reconstruction report.
And do you agree to any aspects of the police's investigation?
I agree that someone broke into Mackenzie Brackman's house and murdered him, and beyond that, I agree with almost nothing.
Let's start from the beginning. How do you believe the perpetrator entered the residence?
Well, as we can see from the Ring video that I reviewed during my investigation, the perpetrator entered through the back door.
Your Honor, may I present my screen to show Exhibit 11?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to now play what has been marked as Exhibit 11. May you please briefly describe the contents of this video?
Yes, this is the video of the Ring doorbell camera on the back side of the house. And this is a video of the perpetrator entering through the back gate.
And is it an accurate reflection of the content of the Ring doorbell?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Prosecution, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit 11 is admitted without objection.
So Professor Blake Van Allen, why is this video important to this case?
Well, we can see that the police are saying that there was a struggle between the intruder and the victim, and the intruder reached over the shoulder of Mackenzie Brackman and stabbed him in the back. But as we can see from this video, the intruder would not have been tall enough to do so.
And after the intruder entered the house, what do the police think happened?
Well, they think that Mr. Brackman was alerted by Ring doorbell notifications or hearing the door open, and they think that he was armed with a knife, and then they got into a scuffle.
And what do you think happened?
Well, this doesn't make any sense with what I can see in my expert opinion. What makes more sense is that the intruder snuck up behind Mr. Brackman and stabbed him with a downward motion. And this would make more sense with their height ratio.
And what physical evidence is there for a struggle?
So there's not a whole lot. It's all circumstantial. A plate can be broken at any time, and there's no way to know with 100% certainty when those scuff marks on the floor were created.
Well said. Now I'd like to talk to you about the knife wound. What is Kyle Cusack suggesting?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, of course. I'd like to talk to you about the knife wound that was inflicted on Mr. Brackman. What does Kyle Cusack suggest happened?
Well, Ms. Cusack suggests that the intruder reached over the shoulder of Mackenzie Brackman with the knife and stabbed him in the back. However, this is highly unlikely because the intruder was much shorter than Mackenzie Brackman.
And in your professional opinion, where could the murder weapon have come from?
Well, it doesn't make any sense for the murder weapon to come from the house because it doesn't match the other knives in the knife block. It would make more sense if the intruder brought the weapon with them.
I'd now like to talk about the cell phone tower data reviewed in this case. What do you think that cell tower data is able to prove?
Not a whole lot. It can't be treated in the same way as something like GPS data because cell phones connect to the tower with the strongest signal, not necessarily the one in the closest proximity to the phone.
And where was Avery on the day of the murder?
Well, Avery had a rock solid alibi. She was at the mall with her friend Taylor Perkins.
Yes. And does that story make sense considering the cell tower data?
Yes, absolutely. You can see that Taylor Perkins' phone was trying to contact Avery Becker's phone throughout the day. Contact was never made, texts and calls were never responded to, so that indicates that they were calling the phone looking for it.
And which other suspects should be considered in this case?
Blair Rollins. His father was convicted and sentenced to life in prison when Mackenzie Brackman was his father's lawyer.
Your Honor, may I please present my screen again to show exhibit number 22?
Yes.
Thank you. I am now going to play what has been marked as exhibit 22.
I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do.
May you please briefly describe what we heard in that audio clip?
This is audio of Jonathan Rollins' trial when they yell, "I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do."
And it's my understanding that you have heard the extended version of this audio file. Does this clip accurately reflect the full recording?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move that Exhibit 22 be entered into evidence.
Prosecution, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Relevance?
Okay.
May I? Oh, thank you, Your Honor. This is incredibly relevant. It goes to point out that the prosecution failed to consider very serious suspects, and therefore the investigation is flawed.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
The fact that Blair's father had a motive to attack Brackman does not reflect a potential motive for Blair themselves.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Not going to admit Exhibit 22. Move on to your next issue, please.
Thank you. Why do you believe that Blair Rollins should be considered as a suspect in this case?
Oh, well, since their father was sentenced to life in prison, Blair has a clear motive to kill Mr. Brackman because he was so angry.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Professor Van Owen. Thank you for joining us today. Let's get started. While listing your credentials, you mentioned you are being paid to be here. Is that correct?
Yes, this is my job.
You said in your affidavit that you're being paid about $450 an hour for testifying today. Is that right?
Yes, and I work very hard and I feel that I should be fairly compensated.
And you said you expect to make at least $8,000 off of this case?
Yes, something around there.
Let's move on to the investigation. In order to contribute to this case, you conducted your own partial investigation, didn't you?
Yes, that's correct.
So you reviewed the findings of the detectives and looked into missteps, but you did not conduct a full investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, your only mention of your investigation was when admitting an oversight on your part, correct?
Correct. I put in a lot of work into this investigation, however.
Your theory of the murder does not involve a struggle, yes?
It does not.
Despite the broken plate, scuff marks, and the fact that Brackman would likely have heard the door open and footsteps approach, correct?
Well, a broken plate and scuff marks don't indicate a struggle because there's no way we can prove when the plate was broken or the scuff marks were created. And on your point that Mr. Brackman would have heard the intruder, I can't speak to the victim's state of mind.
Do you believe in coincidences, Professor?
Yes.
But wouldn't you think it an odd coincidence that there were both scuff marks and a broken plate at the scene of the crime if no struggle occurred?
No.
In your cross, you said the victim was stabbed in your direct, sorry. You said the victim was stabbed in the dining room. If that were true, wouldn't there be blood in the dining room?
I'm not an expert on that kind of thing, but I couldn't say for sure.
And you mentioned you have previous experience with the Aurora Police Department. Is that right?
I do. I was an officer for many years.
However, you quit after an unfortunate incident that left you with a negative impression of police work. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. I injured a young woman during an arrest, and I feel terrible about my actions.
Am I correct in that you have only ever testified for the defense?
That's accurate. The prosecution has other resources beyond private investigators, such as myself.
Could you say that this is because you are generally distrustful of law enforcement and their ability to perform investigations?
Not generally distrustful. I would use the word skeptical based on my personal experiences.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I'd like to start with your compensation. Why are you paid so much?
I work extremely hard, and because I am a private citizen and not a law enforcement officer, I am paid by case, not through something like a salary.
And why didn't you complete a full investigation in this case?
I didn't have the resources.
And after the incident with the woman of color, what did you learn about police work?
I learned that there are flaws in the system and things that need to be changed, and that's why I left the police force.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Witnesses excused?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Does that complete the witnesses for the defense? That
Yes, Your
does.
Honor.
Okay, I was waiting for a response. That does complete the witnesses for the defense. Are the parties prepared for closing arguments? Prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, are you prepared for closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, prosecution, your closing argument, please.
Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Olivia Link, and I am one of the prosecutors in this case. This case is a textbook example of impulsive behavior when confronted and the often dire consequences of said impulsivity. The prosecution's 3 witnesses were called to testify to the defendant's guilt. Each witness testified as explained, and we have established the following facts beyond a reasonable doubt: that on the day of March 6th, 2020, the defendant entered into the victim's residence illegally and struck the victim with a deadly weapon, and that the defendant acted without self-defense. Becker has a history of lying to adults, acting on harmful impulses when confronted, and using the tools easily accessible to act on these whims. Sometimes this manifests as drawing on a car in permanent marker, but this time, Becker's impulsivity had severe consequences which cost Brackman his life. Avery spoke repeatedly about regretting her actions, but just as Sharpie cannot be removed from Brackman's car, the knife cannot be removed from Brackman's body. Our expert witnesses testified to the fact that Becker's phone was somewhere near Brackman's house on the day of his murder. Becker skipped school that day, so the only alibi she has comes from Taylor Perkins, who has an obvious motive to lie and protect her best friend. Cifuentes testified to the tense and explosive relationship between the defendant and the victim, one that worsened leading up to the day of Brackman's murder. The evidence points to an attempted vandalism gone wrong, an act of retribution that escalated past trashing Brackman's house, and this has been established beyond a reasonable doubt. We would ask you to reject the defense's theories in this case. The first of said theories is that Blair Rollins is the most logical suspect, which provides the exact problem with that conclusion in and of itself. Good police work supports the true conclusion, not the easy one. The defense repeatedly suggests Becker to be a victim of convenience, but let us consider the convenience of Blair Rollins as a scapegoat instead. The defense believes Rollins has the motive to murder because Brackman sent his father to jail. That is, the defense is making the grand assumption that Blair wishes to avenge his father. And I would like to remind you, members of the jury, that Avery Becker is on trial today, not Blair Rollins. The second of these theories is that the work of our extremely qualified detectives is incomplete and rushed, despite the fact that the defense only conducted a partial investigation. That searched specifically for faults in Markowitz's and Kuzak's work. It is also important to note that Van Owen never directly examined the evidence. The defense will have you believe that Avery lost her phone and was therefore not at the scene of the crime, but Avery herself admits to being attached to her phone, and the idea she took several hours to notice the phone's disappearance is laughable. This claim is made even more ridiculous by the fact that Avery told us she turns her phone into her mother every night. And how is it that neither Avery nor her mother would have noticed the phone's disappearance? We have no explanation. Another one of the defense's theories is that Alex and Blair plotted to frame Avery for murder. And what, pray tell, is their explanation for this? Jealousy. It is abundantly clear the defense is grasping at straws, and they will settle for any excuse, no matter how ridiculous. Another reminder, we are not proving Becker to be a cold-blooded murderer, but simply an impulsive person who reacts poorly and rashly to confrontation. Additionally, our witnesses are credible, and their statements are consistent and reliable. On the other hand, the defense's witnesses have problematic financial and relationship biases, which prevent them from establishing any kind of reasonable doubt regarding the defendant's guilt. The defendant, of course, has the motive to lie because it would acquit her of all responsibility. Therefore, the defense has no reliable witnesses. In fact, the defense's witnesses themselves testified to Becker's impulsivity and improvisation, the very same impulsivity and improvisation that had fatal consequences for one Mackenzie Brackman. Justice and accountability cannot be dismissed in this case because of the defense and their excuses. In conclusion, the prosecution has met the burden of proof, and we would ask that you find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree and burglary in the second degree. Thank you for your time.
All right. Defense, are you prepared to close?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Long.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you so much for your attention and care throughout this trial. My name is Zach Long, and I am representing Avery Becker, the defendant in this trial. You must now make an important decision. You must decide whether or not to convict my client. What you have seen today with the given evidence is simple. There should be no doubt in your mind when choosing to acquit my client of the presented charges. Before we end this trial, let's run over the evidence that you have seen today, the incomplete evidence that the prosecution has presented. The evidence that has undoubtedly proved to you that when you rush things, you miss things. First and foremost, you've seen that the prosecution has no direct evidence tying Avery Becker to the murder of Mackenzie Brackman. They presented evidence that links someone to this crime, but nothing for certain indicates that my client had anything to do with it. She stated first and foremost that she had never sent those text messages to Alex Fuentes. She also told you that she has no idea where Mr. Brackman lives. Her friend Taylor Perkins then substantiated her alibi, meaning that she was not at Mr. Brackman's house on the day or time of the murder. Taylor Perkins also was the character witness that told you that Avery was a loyal friend and would not lie to anyone. Avery and Alex are far from friends and would never have texted about anything like this. Taylor Perkins also would not lie for her friend, as the prosecution tries to get you to believe. Taylor Perkins told the truth about where Avery was on that day. Avery was not at the house of Mackenzie Brackman. Avery was with her friend looking for her phone, which was taken by Alex Fuentes. Now move back to Blake Van Owens, who pointed out significant flaws in the testimony of two witnesses on the prosecution side. He pointed out that Kyle Cusack and Jordan Markowitz did not see the complete story of this, and that there was not a struggle at the house of Mackenzie Brackman on that day. We see that Avery Becker did not have anything to do with this crime at all. I now want to move into the prosecution witnesses. Kyle Cusack could not connect Avery Becker to the crime. He only saw that there was an intruder on that day went to Mackenzie Brackman's house and killed Mackenzie Brackman. There was nothing that connected just Avery Becker to that crime. Avery Becker and Blair Rollins are of the same physical build. Either one of them could have been there on that day. Next, Jordan Markowitz placed her phone at the crime scene, but this doesn't prove anything as she lost her phone the day before. She said this under oath in the trial. She didn't know where her phone was starting from the events at the Fry Shack the night before. Finally, we go back to Alex Fuentes. Alex Fuentes is a biased witness. He said he was glad to have a larger role on the team after Avery Becker was taken off and was irked about Avery's lack of effort. This gives him significant motive to lie about Avery's texts and her motives the events on that day. He also just happened to have her phone at a time around when Avery lost her phone, and he could have had access to it at that time, texting Avery those things that he showed to Mr. Jordan Markowitz. You might also go back to the vandalization incident. However, this connection would be flawed. Avery Becker was never meant to cause permanent harm. She believed that she was using an erasable marker and deeply regrets her actions on this day. She said it herself during the trial. She had gotten over her anger towards Mr. Brackman and would never have ever done something like this. We then look at the testimony of Taylor Perkins. She lets you know of Avery Becker's alibi. Avery Becker was not at the home of Mackenzie Brackman on this day. The evidence today is simple. It should lead you to a very simple conclusion, that my client, Avery Becker, is not in any way responsible for the homicide of Mackenzie Brackman. Ms. Becker is just a high school student who is passionate and dedicated in many aspects of her life. Reasonable doubt is a doubt based on reason and common sense, which arises from a fair and rational consideration of all the evidence, or of the lack of evidence in this case. It is a doubt which is not a vague, speculative, or imaginary doubt, but a doubt that would cause reasonable people to hesitate to act in matters of importance. The evidence should present reasonable doubt. The evidence should make you question whether it was Avery Becker, or more likely Blair Rollins, who committed this murder. Please do not take away a successful and prosperous life from my client, Avery Becker. Don't let the rushed and biased case of the prosecution change your mind. If you learned anything today, it is that details matter. No one deserves to be charged with a crime they didn't commit. Avery Becker didn't rob anyone. Avery Becker didn't murder anyone. Mr. Brackman's murder was a tragedy, yes, but an act of violence by my client, no. The prosecution tries to get you to believe that Avery Becker is impulsive and would do something like this, but the prosecution is the impulsive one in this case. The prosecution was impulsive when they pulled just the evidence that supported their claims and didn't look at other alternate suspects or anything else. Avery Becker is innocent. Thank you.
All right, rebuttal. And can I check with the timekeepers if there's any time left for rebuttal?
There is 40 seconds under my time, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Link, do you wish to rebut?
Yes, Your Honor. May
Go
I
ahead.
proceed?
You have 40 seconds.
Thank you. I would like to remind you that the defense's witnesses are biased and the defendant confessed to lying to adults and improvising regularly. Avery acts on harmful impulses and uses the tools around her, be it Sharpies or knives. We know Becker's only alibi comes from her best friend and that Avery's phone was near Brackman's house on the day of his murder. Records of Becker's intent to burgle Brackman's house have also been found. The quote-unquote motives of Alex and Blair found by the defense are too weak to establish reasonable doubt. This case is very clear-cut and we have gathered plenty of evidence for a conviction. The defense only conducted a partial investigation and therefore they are in no position to critique how thorough the prosecution's investigation was. The defense is trying to convolute the case and distract from all the evidence gathered by our exceedingly qualified detective. Thank you.
All right. At this point, the case is now closed. All closing arguments are complete. And thank you very much. You've all done a wonderful job. I want to give the scoring panelists an opportunity to have some time to complete their scoring. Please let me know, scoring panelists, when you are completed. Just give me, you can actually just turn on your video or just let me know. But in the meantime, I'm gonna give some commentary if that's acceptable. I want to tell you that both teams did a very good job. And your witnesses were very good as well. I felt that some of the cross-examination I found extremely well done. Also, I want to commend you all. Video is extremely difficult. You have to deal with technology. You have to deal with your timing, and you're not seeing a witness live in front of you. You're just watching an impression on a video, and it's very different from doing that in a courtroom. But I want to tell you, you all did an exceptional job. You all acted extremely professionally. I was very impressed with your demeanor and your presentation. So I can't commend you enough. First, I want to tell you that I'm so impressed with your work. With such a difficult year as we have had, you should be commended for participating and doing your best. And you really did that. I'm a magistrate here at the Arapahoe County Court. I've been doing this now. I'm going on to my 3rd year. And I've been a trial attorney for 30 years. So great job, all of you. And don't give up. Be passionate and always treat these cases like they're real. And that they have actual consequences, and you'll always do a great job. So I want to thank you all for that, and the witnesses as well. If any of the scoring panelists would like to provide any additional commentary, please feel free to do it at this time. I'm going to go ahead and mute my microphone.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, guys. I'm Rachel Palmer. I am a litigator and have been a litigator for many years. I also was in mock trial all through high school, went to state a few times, and then have coached in the past. So mock trial is just a huge passion project of mine. And I will second the magistrate. Man, this is hard. And, you know, I've been doing it via WebEx, which is our Zoom. And it's so hard. And you guys did an amazing job. So really, yes, exactly. Kudos to you guys. And your parents and your coaches. I don't know how you guys are doing it, but you did an amazing job. Everyone was really professional with each other when there were technological issues, and you really worked to hear each other and give the other party the benefit of the doubt, which I can tell you is not what has been happening in some cases. So that's nice to see from you guys. Just a few specific things, Zach, on the direct of the witness you were crossing, you let her get away with a ton of stuff that you could have just said foundation, foundation, foundation. How do you know that? And even if you lost those objections, you would have ruined their flow, which is always something you want to do, especially when they were going back and forth and really vibing. You could have ruined that with foundation objections that she probably could have gotten around, but that would just be a strategy thing. Natalie, I'm so glad I was muted. I laughed like 4 or 5 times when you said something about, well, generally they don't answer their phone when they're murdering people. Died laughing. So super glad I was muted and that we weren't in person because that was so funny. Olivia, excellent use of redirect. That's how we want to see it used. Just simple, to the point, only go back over the things that were damaging. So that was really great. Lillian, great use of signposts throughout your exam. It really helped the panelists be able to follow kind of where we're going, what we're doing, what you want to talk about next. So really great job with that. A general note on objections, even if you don't know a response. So you're the responding attorney, someone has objected, don't just give in. Just say, I don't think that this is leading, or I don't think that this is X, and let the judge do their job. Be it by saying, oh, never mind, or you're right. You're taking that away from our judge. And oftentimes judges kind of have the answer in their head, whether or not you argued it, because they know the rules of evidence. So just kind of stand by it and say, it didn't lack foundation, or my witness was not relying on hearsay, and let the judge do their job. Because oftentimes they kind of make their own decision whether or not you argue it appropriately or not. Olivia, excellent closing and great tone. Olivia and Catherine, you were both super relatable, great tone, pace, and energy. Energy is so hard on these devices. I don't even know. Energy is really hard to convey, but it's also really important. So you guys did a great job with that. And my last comment, experts, you were all annoyingly self-assured, which is exactly what experts are. They walk in the room and they think they know better than everyone, including the judge. And all 3 of you were annoying, which was excellent. So really good job, guys. I enjoyed it. Kudos to you guys.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Rachel says. My name is Ariana. I am a civil defense attorney at Hall & Evans. I did not do mock trial in high school. I was actually a giant science geek all the way through college until I accidentally became an attorney. I would have, under no circumstances, had the guts to do what you guys are doing today. I didn't even have the guts to do what you guys are doing in college or in law school. So kudos to you, massive kudos. I'm so impressed every time I do one of these competitions and judge you guys. You guys are amazing. Lillian, honest to goodness, if I would close my eyes, I would have thought that you were an actual prosecutor. Some of my closest friends are prosecutors. Sometimes I like to go and listen in on some of their trials, and you were fantastic. Lucy, you as well. Exactly what Rachel said about the experts. Yes, they're so annoying and so assured. That's what they're paid for. But you were fantastic. All of the experts were, but Lucy, you in particular, I completely bought everything that you said. If I was on the jury or if I was the person paying you to be my expert, I would be sitting there silently cheering, just like, yes, 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 that's exactly what I want you to say. So, but really everyone's such a fantastic job, especially working through any tech errors. It's so frustrating. It happens all the time. We've been in this kind of a virtual courtroom setting now for just about a year now. It's not fun for anyone. It's not fun for our judges. It's not fun for the attorneys, and it's not fun for any of our clients. You guys are honestly handling it a lot better than we are. So great work. You're off to a great start, and I'm really proud of you guys.
Yeah, I echo the same thing as both Ariane and Rachel. Guys, you did a great job. This is definitely really hard to do virtually. Nobody turned themselves into a kitten or a potato. So, and I don't really know if we can do that with this Zoom platform, but, those kind of things happen. they happen to the best of us, they happen to attorneys, they happen to judges. You know, any kind of tech error, it's okay, roll with it. You know, we all understand. So, and you guys all handled any kind of like errors that came up pretty well. Actually, all of you did very well with that. So, you know, and like I said, a lot of attorneys get very, very upset, and you guys were all very professional, which is great. Your performances, I mean, I think Rachel and Ariana did a great job of covering your guys' performances. I echo exactly what they said. I am a legal research attorney for the 18th Judicial District. I've been watching mock trials for about 3 years now. I never did mock trial either. And my job is actually mostly transactional, which means I don't hardly ever get into the courtroom myself except to watch. And I can tell you that I've watched a lot of attorneys over the last 4 years. And, you know, some of you guys are well beyond some of the attorneys I've seen. So great job. You know, I'm just going to leave it at that and wish you all the best of luck going forward, and good health.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Let's give them a round of applause. Great job, everybody. Thank you. You can't hear it, but you can see it. Good luck going forward. And I think that surmises everything we need to do today. Panelists, scoring panelists, thank you so much for your great feedback. And yeah, I wish we all were as good as they were, but you guys did a great job. Thank you very much. And I'm Magistrate Farrow at the Arapahoe County Court. If you ever want to come watch proceedings or come to the courtroom and meet me and ask questions, you're always welcome to come and observe. And I encourage you. This could be the start of a great future. So good luck to you and take care, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll send you back into, are you on for the final round?
No, this is the only round I was going to do. Am I all set?
Thank you. Thank you very much for everything. We very much appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Anything you need, you can always count on me, okay?
Awesome.